discussion and debate, atheism, evolution, Bible study, prophecy and doctrine, social issues, and everything Christian. These are Hot Topics with your host Eric, a.k.a. Wolf. Welcome. Hello, good morning. God bless you, and thank you for joining in today. This is Eric, aka Wolfbitten. This is Hot Topics, and today we are going into part 2 of our Bible study of the beasts of the Bible and unraveling these beasts. I had a few interesting comments on yesterday's program, and let me screen share a couple of these with you. Bear with me just a moment. So we're going to go right over here. This is a new listener, Norma Jean. God bless you, Norma Jean. Thank you for tuning in. I'm a post-trib believer. I love this subject, which, speaking of the beasts of Revelation. And we love this subject too, Norma Jean. Thank you very much for joining in. We appreciate you. Good News Gospel. My good friend Bill commented in it. Brother Thickshades, Uncle Sam I am. Now, this is a brother who we're in disagreement, but that's okay. We're still brothers in Christ, and that's all right. He says the beast simply means system. Vatican is the beast in Revelation 13 and 17, which took on prior system beast to carry into Mystery Babylon. Well, you know, you're not the only one that thinks that, brother, and it's okay if you want to believe that. But in my opinion, you see, that's what I was taught many, many years ago. But then when I began studying the subject for myself, and I began paying attention to all the little words that are in all of these various prophecies throughout Jeremiah, Daniel, Revelation, all these places where we read about the beast, I saw that it can't possibly be the Vatican or the Catholic Church. Not at all. Although there are a lot of people that would agree with you and disagree with me, I just can't, of a good conscience, agree with that at all. I believe in letting God speak. When God gives his prophecies, God tells us what they mean. He doesn't just leave it to our own interpretation. And I think that when people are leaning to their own interpretations, this is where they get things wrong. And they don't carefully read into all of the various little clues that God gives us. And we're about to go into that, as a matter of fact. And I'm going to share with you, my friend, why I say that it cannot possibly be the Vatican. So we're going to stop sharing now. And I'm going to go over here. I'm going to pull up a couple of things from yesterday and recap a little bit of this so that you'll see exactly where I'm coming from. Now, if you recall, yesterday we studied the beasts that are mentioned in the book of Daniel. Now, first we had the statue. The statue begins with the head of gold, and it goes down through the Medes and the Persians, and then to Alexander the Great, and then to Rome. But then if you follow it down, it continues with Rome. Rome continues until the end day. Now, Now, what I want you to remember is this. The Roman Empire was never conquered. The Roman Empire never dissolved completely. It morphed into several different things. And its final, the thing that it morphs into in the last days, in the end days, is represented by the 10 toes, the 2 feet of iron and clay, and the 10 toes. And he calls these kingdoms, not a church, but 10 kingdoms and 10 kings. And then when we go to Daniel chapters 7 and 8, we see the very same thing. We see that it is represented by animals. There we go. Babylon is represented by the lion. Then we have the Medes and the Persians represented by the bear. Then we have Alexander the Great represented by the leopard with 4 heads. 4 heads because when he died, his kingdom was divided among his 4 generals. And then the final beast that comes up is the terrible beast of, well, with iron teeth, or the legs of iron in the statue. And he has 10 horns. Now, both of these, Daniel 2 and Daniel 7, talk about these beasts, this final beast existing. He's diverse from all the rest. How is he diverse? Because he exists for over 2,000 years, unlike these other kingdoms before him. He goes down through time, and he has he morphs into many different things. Now, one of the things that the Roman Empire morphed into eventually was the Holy Roman Empire. Now, at that point, somebody might say, aha, well, there's the Vatican. No. Let me point this out. The Vatican was not in charge of the Roman Empire. It did not have power over the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire, as a matter of fact, is what instituted the Roman Catholic Church. And we see this under Constantine. And we see that under Constantine and Justinian, the Roman Empire had a tight reign over the Roman Catholic Church. As a matter of fact, it was Constantine and Justinian that initiated all of these various councils to set the doctrine straight. I think that they rather paganized Christianity through some of their doctrines and etc., through some of the things that they've brought about. But it was the Roman Empire that set up the papacy there. And the papacy was subject to the Roman Empire. Now, there were power struggles, don't get me wrong, I won't deny that, down through history. But the Roman Empire kept morphing, and they remained in control over the church. It wasn't a thing where the church was in control over them. It's kind of like the Freemasons, okay? We know for a fact that Freemasonry has infiltrated, if you go back to Dr. Malachi Martin and some of his interviews, he states in his books and in his interviews that Freemasonry has kind of hijacked the Roman Catholic Church. So the Roman Catholic Church is not shaping the world that we see today. What is shaping the world, however, is the West and their allies. We're the ones that have, for instance, manufactured this war between Russia and Ukraine by surrounding Russia, doing that which we promised we would not do through our negotiations when the Soviet Union was breaking apart. And we told them that we would not extend NATO into the Baltic nations, but we have, and we continue to this day. And now Russia is almost completely surrounded by NATO. And that's what we see going on there. Good morning, John. Well, brother, if you need a haircut, go ahead and get one. God bless you. Thank you for dropping in. So, what we see here then is that we have these beasts. Now, what I want you to understand is that when the Bible talks about the beast, it's talking about two things. It's talking about both a man or men, and it's also talking about an entity. You could say a timeless entity. And so this timeless entity is kind of a system, but it's also more than a system. It is a group of nations that have ruled throughout time. They keep rising. They rise one right after the other. That's what these beasts are. Like Daniel begins with Babylon, then goes into Media Persia, then Greece, Alexander the Great, and then Rome. And then Rome extends down to the end of time. Now, what I want to do, I want to show you something here, and bear with me just a moment. Okay. Daniel 2 and 44. And in the days of those kings. Now, what kings is this talking about? Does it say in the days of the Vatican? No. In the days of the Pope? No. These are the 10 toes of Nebuchadnezzar's statue. We saw that the iron hips and legs are the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire, the reason it has two legs, just like you have the Eastern Empire and the Western Empire of the Roman, Eastern and Western Roman branches of the Roman Empire. So, in the days of these kings, what kings? These final 10 kings that give their authority to the beast, which is the Antichrist, and who is followed by the false prophet. So in the days of those kings, you don't see any church mentioned there. No Roman Catholic Church. In the days of those 10 toes, which are also represented by the 10 horns that we read in Daniel and in the book of Revelation, Daniel chapter 7 and 8, in the days of those 10 kingdoms, shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. In other words, Christ is going to come. Christ is going to return and take the kingdoms of the world to himself during the days of these 10 toes, or the days of these 10 horns. And these are called kingdoms, my friend. And they are ruled by kings. You're going to see this. Let's knock it on home with Daniel chapter 7. If we start at verse 20, we see that the ram is Media Persia, the he-goat is Alexander the Great, and then verse 22, we see that when his power was broken, 4 of his generals divided his kingdom, and out of that came the Roman Empire. Verse 23, and in the latter time of their kingdom, not the latter time of the church, not the latter time of the Vatican, in the latter time of these 10 horns, in the latter time of these 10 toes, in the latter time, that's verse 23, in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to a full, a king of fierce countenance, not a pope, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. And his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. And he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper and practice, and destroy the mighty and the holy people. And of course, we know that this is referring to Antichrist and then later the false prophet, which follows him. So Daniel's clear. These are kingdoms, my friend. These are kingdoms. Let me see. Perhaps the 10 kings will soon introduce the New World Order. Well, I believe that what we're seeing, John, are the things, the precursors that are going to set up for that. I do believe that for sure. They're definitely working toward that. And in Daniel chapter 8, now with Daniel chapter 8, we're going to see we have the same phenomenon going on. I'm going to begin in let's go to 21. I beheld, and the same horn, which horn? That would be the Antichrist, and then the false prophet following him. The same horn made war with the saints and prevailed against them until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given unto the saints of the Most High. And the time came that the saints possessed the kingdom. Thus he said, the fourth kingdom. Now remember, the fourth kingdom here was this terrible beast with 10 horns, and these 10 horns are 10 kingdoms. Okay, the fourth beast shall be the fourth kingdom upon the earth, which is, we saw was Rome, that comes all the way down through 2,000 years of history until he is morphed into this 10-nation confederacy that are ruled by Mystery Babylon. So you have actually 11 nations, and then the beast and the false prophet ruling them. So you have 11 nations and 10, 11, 12, 13 kings. So this Roman Empire is diverse from all kingdoms, and he devours the whole earth and treads it down and breaks it into pieces, and he has over and over and over. There was a time when the Roman Empire was said to have morphed into the British Empire, and the sun never set on the British Empire. And then that power morphed over to the United States, and now our influence is held throughout the world, and our will be done. Verse 24. And the 10 horns out of this kingdom, out of which kingdom? Out of Rome. We began, don't forget, this was the terrible fourth beast that arose from Alexander the Great's division of his kingdom among his 4 generals. Among them rose the Roman Empire. And the 10 horns come out of that kingdom, according to verse 24. These are 10 nations. And we see in verse 24, the 10 horns out of this kingdom are 10 kings, not popes, not bishops, not cardinals. 10 kings that shall arise, and another shall arise after them. And he shall be diverse from the first, and he shall subdue all things. This is the beast, the Antichrist, and he is followed by the false prophet. And then we see down in verse 25 that he's going to speak great words against the Most High God. He's going to wear out the saints of the Most High God. But then the judgment's going to sit in verse 26, and they shall take away his dominion, who? Christ. upon his return. So there we have it. It's pretty clear. It's actually exceptionally clear if you just let God explain what he's doing here and let God interpret his own prophecies. You see that this is not a Catholic church. This is indeed kingdoms, regular kingdoms with regular kings. And it's out of these that the beast and the false prophet rise. So now I want to take you on to a Revelation chapter 13, and we're going to take some time for a little riddle here in a few minutes. But I want to first, we're going to go into Revelation chapter 13. And stay tuned for this riddle. In chapter 13, I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea. Again, this beast has 7 heads and 10 horns, just like the beast in Daniel, and just like the 10 toes of the statue that Nebuchadnezzar saw. 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, again showing that these are kings. And upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth was like the mouth of a lion. Now, what's that remind us of? That reminds us of this right here. You see, what God is showing us here in Revelation chapter 13, that this is part of the same beast that Daniel was shown. It's got the it's like unto a leopard, its feet like that of a bear, the mouth of a lion, and the dragon gave him his power and authority. So this is echoing the same vision that was given to Daniel. Pardon me. All right, so verse 3, I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast, and they worshipped the dragon which gave power unto the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? There was given to him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue for 42 months. Now, there's several things going on here, my friend. This is interchangeably talking about the kingdom as well as the king. So when it talks about, I saw one of his heads as though it were wounded to death. Now, a lot of people, you hear people refer to the rise and fall of the Roman Empire. As a matter of fact, there's a great book written by that very same title, The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire. And though it may have kind of fallen, it was never conquered, and it never ended, and it just morphed through time in order to hold its power until it ends up in its final stage of 10 toes. But also, this is referring to, you notice that this beast is given a mouth. Now, in Daniel, we see that a little horn rises up among the 10 horns, and that he's given a set of eyes like a man and a mouth to speak great things against the great God Almighty. This is referring to the rise of the Antichrist, who is then replaced by the false prophet. So, when we see the talk of these kingdoms, it's interchangeably also talking about the kings. You can't separate one from the other. It's talking about both. And down through time, we've had these this type of kingdom that has made up this beast, down through Nebuchadnezzar, through the Medes and the Persians, through Alexander the Great, through the Caesars in Rome. And you had great men associated with all of these kingdoms. So the kingdoms were all types and shadows of the end time kingdom of the beast. And the men were all types and shadows of Antichrist, many of whom did commit abominations of desolation. For instance, Belshazzar of Babylon, the grandson of Nebuchadnezzar, drank from the golden vessels that were taken from the Temple of Rome. That is a type of the abomination of desolation. Then we have Titus of Rome committing the abomination of desolation in Jerusalem. So down through time, you have types and shadows of the end time kingdom, and you have types and shadows of the Antichrist taking place down through all of these kingdoms. So in verse 6, we see he opens his mouth in blasphemy. And in verse 7, it's given unto him to make war with the saints and to overcome them. In Daniel, we see that he wears out the saints. Here it says, it's very clear, he overcomes them. So I think that's very interesting. It's not going to be an easy time for Christians, and I think we're about to enter that time. We can see time is getting harder and harder for Christians as time moves on today. So, verse 11. I beheld another beast. I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spoke as a dragon. And he, this is the one we call the false prophet, exerciseth all of the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell within to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. So there we see, when we read a little bit earlier about this deadly wound, that is talking about the nation itself, the empire of Rome, that looked like it was dead, but all of a sudden it's morphed into all of these, it morphs through time until it ends up as these 10 toes. And now it's suddenly alive and reigning over the earth again. And at the same time, you have this man that's ruling over it, also known as the beast, who we call the Antichrist commonly. And it appears that something happens to him, whether it's an assassination attempt or not. We can't really be dogmatic because God isn't dogmatic, but needless to say, it appears that he has a deadly wound, and that deadly wound is healed. So it's during that time that the second beast rises, who we call the Antichrist, and he exercises, according to verse 12, he exercises all the power of the first beast before him, and causes all of the earth and them that dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And he does great wonders, so that he makes fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceives them that dwells on the earth by means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. So we see something very clearly here. We see that this second beast takes the power, or takes the position of the first beast, the false prophet steps into the position that was once filled by the Antichrist, but the Antichrist is still alive. And it is, in fact, according to verse 16 here, for 15 and 16, it is the false prophet, not the Antichrist, quote unquote. It is the false prophet, the one that rises after the beast, that institutes the mark of the beast and the image of the beast. And we see in verse 15, he had power to give life to the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he calls us all, both great and small, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, that no man might buy or sell, save he that have the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. And here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. So it's actually the false prophet that gives life to the image of the beast, causes it to speak, and institutes the mark of the beast. And he does this in honor of the first beast that rose before him, whom we call Antichrist. And he's the one that brings homage to the Antichrist. So I want to take us now, Revelation chapter 17. Now, this is going to be very interesting. This is an extension, you're going to see, of the prophecy concerning this terrible beast, this 10 toes that comes down eventually to the end of time from the Roman Empire of Daniel 2. And the terrible beast that comes down through time from the Roman Empire and ends up as 10 horns, a confederation of 10 nations. Should we not flee Babylon, knowing the scriptures shall be fulfilled? Well, yes, John. And as a matter of fact, there's two ways to flee Babylon. Not everybody can afford to leave Mystery Babylon. But we can certainly make sure that we flee from her spiritually, and that we cling tight to Christ, and that we don't be deceived with the flatteries that are going to be coming against us, and the peer pressure, and when they turn it into a criminal act to worship the Lord. It's going to be a criminal act not to take the mark of the beast. It's going to be a criminal act not to worship the beast. Now, there's various ways of worshiping, so, that's, we could talk about that too. It doesn't necessarily mean falling on your face before it and doing obeisance to it. So, yes, we should definitely flee Mystery Babylon. But in Revelation chapter 17 here, we're going to see something very interesting. And this is going to lead us into our riddle. There came to me one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and he talked with me, saying, Come hither, and I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters. Now, all of these are very, very, very important clues. Every little detail here. And I'm going to say that all of these clues come from the Old Testament. Many of them come from Jeremiah chapters 50 and 51. You would do yourself a service to read Jeremiah 50, chapters 50 and 51, if you want to understand this. So I will shew thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication. And the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away into the spirit, into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast. Now here's that beast again, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. So again, we see the very same beast that we saw in Revelation chapter 13, with 7 heads and 10 horns. Verse 4, the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet collar, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. Now, we are going to go into Mystery Babylon at another time, but now I'm just focusing on the beast that she's riding. He sees the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus, and when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. And the angel said unto me, wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carries her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast that thou saw was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition, and they that dwell upon the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. And here is the mind that has wisdom. In other words, pay attention here, because this is a clue for us. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. Now, what does this mean? The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. Pardon me. I gave you the wrong one there. Let me go down just a little bit here. Well, evidently. Oh, no, there it is. Okay. Jeremiah chapter 51. Now, in Jeremiah 50 and 51, we have an interesting little thing going on there with prophecies regarding 2 entities. The first is Babylon, the nation, the empire that existed thousands of years ago and was overthrown by the Medes and the Persians. But it also refers to an end-time entity that it calls the daughter of Babylon. Isaiah also refers to her as the virgin daughter of Babylon. Revelation 13, or Revelation 17, rather, refers to her as Mystery Babylon. But what's this say about a mountain? We just read, the 7 heads are 7 mountains. Now, this is going to give us a clue as to what exactly this beast is. Is this beast the the Vatican? No. Jeremiah referred to both Babylon and the daughter of Babylon as a mountain, a destroying mountain. This is an empire. Behold, I am against thee, O destroying mountain, saith the Lord, which destroys all the earth, and I will stretch out my hand upon thee. Now, we know that this is talking about Mystery Babylon, because Babylon did not destroy all the earth. But Mystery Babylon is going to be responsible for making away with many. And he says at the end, I will make thee a burnt mountain, And that's exactly what he does. He makes her a burnt mountain. So here is wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits. In other words, 7 kingdoms through time. And there are 7 kings. Remember, I told you that when he's referring to the beast, he's referring interchangeably to both the Antichrist type that ruled that empire, as well as that empire. That empire is referred to as a beast, and the Antichrist type that ruled that empire is called a beast. They're interchangeable. So we see there are 7 kings, there were 7 mountains, there were 7 kingdoms, there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, 1 is, and the other one is not yet come. Now here's where we come across our riddle. We have a 7-headed beast here, and all of these heads represent various empires. Now here in Daniel, we only have 4 beasts. We have the lion, which is Babylon. We have the bear, which is the Medo-Persians. We have the leopard, 4-headed leopard, which is Alexander the Great. And we have the final terrible beast with 10 horns, which is Rome, that morphs into 10 end-time nations. But we have something really interesting here. How do you go from 4 beasts to a beast with 7 heads or 7 empires? He says 5 are fallen, 1 is, and 1 is yet to come. Now let's count this back. The 1 yet to come is the end time confederation of 10 toes or 10 horns that is going to be destroyed by Christ at his return, that are going to be associated with Mystery Babylon and rule the earth when Christ does return. They have morphed from the Roman Empire 2,000 years ago into these 10 toes at the end of time. So that's the one that's to come. What was the one that existed at the time John was writing the book of Revelation? Rome. Rome existed. So we see 5 are fallen and 1 is. And 1 is yet to come. But hold on a minute. Count backward now. If Rome existed, then who were the 5 that fell? Before Rome, we had Alexander the Great. Before Alexander the Great, we had the Medes and the Persians with Darius and Cyrus. And before that, we had Babylon. That's only 3. So if you add the 1 that existed during the time of the writing to the 3 that were fallen, and the 1 yet to come, you've got a total of 5. So who were the 2? We're missing 2. We're missing 2 kingdoms that had fallen. Where did they go? Well, that's an interesting question, isn't it? And again, the answer is revealed if we just look at every little word that God uses in his descriptions. We find the answer to this in Daniel chapter 2. Why do we have a seeming contradiction here? They only go back to Babylon, but then that doesn't add up. If 5 are fallen in the book of Revelation, we know that the ones that fallen, who were they again? Alexander the Great, the Medo-Persians, and the Babylonians. Where are the two missing heads that are fallen? The answer, my friend, is in Daniel chapter 2. Why are we missing two heads? Here's why. This is the dream that Nebuchadnezzar had of the statue, the head of gold, the chest of bronze, the the chest of silver, the torso of bronze, and the legs of iron that morphed into 10 toes at the end time kingdoms. But here's what he says. In the days of these kings, which kings? Oh, excuse me. Okay. We see that these are latter-day kingdoms, but hold on just a second. I got to, I'm showing you the wrong verse. I apologize for that. Bear with me just a moment. Okay. In Daniel chapter 2, let me pull this back up. This is the answer. In Daniel chapter 2, when Nebuchadnezzar has his dream, Daniel is coming up to him and he says, look, O king, I have the answer here. And because, if you recall, King Nebuchadnezzar was telling the people, his magicians and stuff, that if they couldn't tell him what he dreamed, he was going to kill them. And nobody could tell him what he dreamed. So he was about to kill them when Daniel said, hold on a second, give me a little time to confer with God, and God is able to do this. So then we see that Daniel receives this from God. God gives him the answer, and he goes before the king. And Daniel says before the king in verse 26, the king answered and said to Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar, art thou able to make known unto me the dream which I have dreamed and the interpretation thereof? And Daniel answered in the presence of the king and said, the secret which the king demanded cannot the wise men and the astrologers and the magicians, and nobody can show you this thing. But there is a God in heaven that reveals these secrets and maketh known to the king Nebuchadnezzar what shall be in the latter days. Thy dream and the visions of thy head upon thy bed are these. As for thee, O king, your thoughts came into your mind as you laid upon your bed. What shall come to pass hereafter? There's your key right there, my friends. You see, all of the kingdoms that are mentioned, God was showing Nebuchadnezzar not what had happened before him, but what would be happening after him. That the Medo-Persians would rise and overthrow Babylon, that Alexander the Great would overthrow the Medo-Persians, that Rome would take over from there and go down through history and morph into 10 toes, and that would be the end of the world as we know it. What he didn't show him were the parts of the beast that existed before him. Now, if the beast itself are these ruling empires that have ruled the world, basically. Now, what do I mean by ruling the world? I don't mean that there are no more sovereign nations. I mean that just like the United States today pushes around the people, we corrupt them with the abundance of our delicacies, and whom we can't corrupt and whom we can't buy off, we conquer. And whom we can't corrupt and whom we can't conquer, we cause problems for them. Like expanding NATO to the point that it surrounds Russia, to the point it causes Russia to begin a war with Ukraine, influencing things across the world, like the vaccinations and all of the fake or not so fake information that's passed around about these terrible diseases that are being passed around right now. So the thing is, there were world ruling empires before this. Now, who existed? Who were the world ruling empires before Nebuchadnezzar? Egypt. And then who was the world ruling empire before Egypt? Nimrod. Nimrod ruled the world. Egypt ruled the world. Then your next leader of the world would have been Babylon. And after Babylon, the Medes and the Persians. So those are the five that were fallen. You have Nimrod, you have Egypt, you have Babylon, then you have Media Persians, then you have Alexander the Great. Those were the five that were fallen. And then the one that was existing at the time that this was written was Rome. And then Rome comes down all through time, through those two legs, until it morphs into the 10 toes, or the 10 horns, that we see at the very end of time. So, there we see, it's very easy to understand now what this actually means. So we see that there are 10 horns down through the end of time. There's 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and goes into perdition, and they that dwell upon the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the Lamb's book of life. And here is wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman's sitting. And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, 1 is, and 1 is yet to come. Now we're coming to something really interesting. The beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and of the 7, and he goes into perdition. And the 10 horns which thou saw are what? The Pope? The Vatican? The Roman Catholic Church? No. The 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. So this is extremely clear now, but I want to go back to a little, okay, they give their power to the beast, they make war with the Lamb overcomes them, and then begins the millennial kingdom. Hello, Tommy, good to see you, brother. And Norma Jean, God bless you. It's so good to see you. Thank you very much for joining in. Both of you, God bless you guys. So, here's what we're left with. A really interesting passage here talking about the beast. Okay, now we see that 5 are fallen, 1 is, the other is yet to come. We saw that the 7 heads were 7 mountains, which Jeremiah called kingdoms. 7 mountains are 7 kingdoms. And then we see there are 7 kings. So, of course, if you have 7 empires, you've got 7 kings. So, as we go down through the end of the Roman Empire, down through his eastern and western leg to the end of time, where we have the Roman Empire finally morphing into the 10-nation confederacy with Mystery Babylon. Out of one of them arise a leader, the little horn, the big mouth, and it's going to be speaking great blasphemies against God, and starts a war on the saints. And then we see another one rising, who is of the seven, but he is the eighth. Verse 11, and the beast that was and is not, even he is the eighth, and is of the seven, and goes into perdition. So, the beast, the Antichrist, is one of the rulers, is the ruler of the end time confederacy at the very end. He receives a deadly wound. He steps down. The false prophet steps up. And even he is the eighth, but is of the seven, because he's of that same end time confederacy that the Antichrist was and began. So he is the eighth and is of the seven. And he's going to go into perdition. I'm very glad that you're enjoying this, Norma Jean. God bless you, my friend, and welcome. Thank you so very much for joining in. So we have a really interesting phenomenon here. God is very clear. We don't have to guess what are these beasts. Who are these beasts? We don't have to guess that at all. We can know because God tells us, and that's all we have to do is read God's word, let God explain his own prophecies to it, and keep our own interpretations out of it. If we get desperate to interpret something, we're going to make a mistake. But if we take our time and simply let God interpret his own word, then we can be prepared. That's wisdom, my friend, letting God interpret. We can't be desperate and trying to interpret things, and we can't just take one chapter or one verse and figure all this out. You see, it takes many chapters, it takes many verses to put this together to understand who and what all the beasts are. That's why God dedicated 3 chapters of Daniel to it. Chapters 2 and 7 and 8. He dedicated 2 chapters of Jeremiah to it, Jeremiah chapters 50 and 51. He dedicated a whole chapter of Isaiah to it. He dedicated Revelation chapter 13. Revelation chapter 16 deals with it. Revelation chapter 17 and 18. And it takes all of these together to understand exactly what he's talking about. So that's what we've got to do. We've got to put this all together, and then we've got to let God interpret himself. So when we do that, here's what we find in a nutshell, my friends. We find that Nebuchadnezzar asked God to explain. Hello, how you doing today?
Hey, Eric, how are you?
It's good having you on, brother. Thank you for joining.
Oh, thank you. I was on the phone, but I was going to join you, but I was on the phone. It's barely catching on. I noticed that you were covering something of Book of Revelation and stuff, so that's one of my favorite too. So yeah, I hope
Yeah,
that
yeah,
hope
we
that uh-huh.
yeah
Go
we
ahead.
were going over the beasts of Revelation and how you what my method of understanding God is to put together everything that he says about it and not try to come to a conclusion of my own on anything, but to let God interpret everything. And I've found that God does interpret his own visions. God will give us a vision, God will give us a prophecy, and then he'll interpret it and tell us exactly what it means. So that's what we were going through today. We were going through all of the places where God showed, for instance, like the beasts that rise up. Like, for instance, you have the statue with 7 heads. And are you okay, brother?
Yeah. I'm just adjusting my chair. Was that
Okay.
too loud?
Uh,
Yeah.
uh, well, we were discussing how God was defining all of these things as end time nations. What I find especially hard now, I know you and I have a little bit of a disagreement on what what the beast is. You believe that the Vatican is part of the
Well,
beast.
right. There are many beasts, so to say, and there is the beast towards the end. And I believe one of the little beast is Roman Catholic, and can be represented at Vatican also.
Well, which beast would you say specifically is the Roman Catholic?
Well, Roman Catholic is in Vatican, and it's just that it became it became a little state.
Yeah, but I mean,
But
which beast would you say represents the Roman Catholic Church?
uh, uh, in Revelation 17 and 13, the one that I
Okay,
was right, just the one that was, but not anymore, but
okay.
is and will be.
And
And uh,
for those of you that don't know my friend here, this is Uncle Sam, uh,
yay. Hey,
otherwise
Norma.
otherwise known as Thick Shades, and uh, it's okay that we disagree. I what we do when we disagree, we just talk about it, and maybe we can come to an agreement, maybe not, but that's okay. I don't mind when somebody disagrees, but let me
Oh yeah,
give.
me too. Yeah, I mean, for me, the anything that we it's not obvious, right, is out there actually. So like one of the beasts is Roman Empire.
Mhm.
That never went away, so to say. However, it uh, it birthed many different ones, and one of them is Roman Catholic, and is solidified through Vatican later in history, and birthed more such thing as like Masons and Freemason and things such Jesuits or whatever that you want to call, and now it seems like we're going towards that end time and period where that Mystery Babylon will finally be revealed.
Mhm. Well, I'll tell you why I would disagree with Roman Catholic being that. Um, in the first place, when you're going through, I just pointed out, for instance, at the beginning here, all the times through Daniel chapters 2, 7, and 8, and then Revelation uh, 13 and 17, where it talks about these as being kingdoms. They're all kingdoms and they all have a king.
Right.
So then,
I don't disagree with that.
mhm. Then when we run down to, oh, there's a message for you.
Hmm?
There's a message for you
Oh
from
yeah, I
Ben.
said hi. You
Yeah,
like the fish? Well, I was going to show that fish, but it's about sashimi. So you gotta kill the fish. But maybe I'll play that later. If
yeah.
you like sashimi, if you like sushi and sashimi, I'll play that. But I'm just showing regular street scene here.
So uh, what I was pointing out though, when we come to the Roman Empire is represented, of course, by the two legs of the statue, but also the
Right, Constantinople and the right. Go ahead.
right, and then it morphs into 10 toes eventually. That's
What do you think those 10 toes represent, Eric?
well, it goes on to tell us. It tells us that these 10 toes are 10 kingdoms with 10 kings at the end time that are going to associate with the Antichrist and then the false prophet.
The little
Uh,
horn,
right, the little horn,
right?
also known as the in Revelation, the big mouth. He's given a mouth,
Mm.
In Daniel, he's a horn that rises up, and Daniel, or in Revelation, he's a mouth. Um, so, but he does tell us that those 10 toes or those 10 horns and the seventh head of the beast in Daniel 7 and 8 and Revelation 13 and 13 and 17. In all four places, it tells us that the 10 toes, the 10 horns are the exact same thing. They're just the final state of the Roman Empire that has eventually morphed into a 10-nation confederacy. They are 10 kingdoms with 10 kings. So,
I
uh,
think for me is that the I could understand that you would interpret that as 10 different kingdoms and nations. Uh, I do agree with that. However, I see that more globally nowadays, especially where I would kind of think that as 10 kind of major power, 10 major powers. Like for example, like even the America, not just like America, but also Canada, that group, or like certain Asian group or certain European group. That's sort of 10 divisions of power group, I would think, rather than
well,
different nations.
yeah, I see the United States as the ultimate final extension of the Roman Empire.
Oh yeah, of course. I
Yeah,
mean, it's European country. Most of European countries are like that.
yeah.
In fact, yeah,
So, if but the I don't think we know yet who the 10 particular nations are going to be that give their power to the Antichrist and the false prophet. But we can be rest assured that it is the final morphing of the Roman Empire, uh, because he says that uh, the like in Daniel, the fourth beast, which is the same as the legs of iron that come down from the Roman Empire. The fourth beast has 10 horns. He That's what he morphs into eventually. But the fourth beast is the Roman Empire that comes down through 2,000 years of history, and he takes on various forms. Now, something that I brought out earlier is that one of the ways that the Roman Empire lasted was it eventually morphed into what we would call the Holy Roman Empire. But the interesting thing about that was that it wasn't the Catholic Church that formed the Roman Empire, but it was the Roman Empire that instituted the Catholic Church, you could say, through Constantine and Justinian.
right. About
So,
313, yeah. But
yeah.
the thing is, like, they played a major role in Roman Empire history, and also throughout the history, they actually have been warring against the saints.
Mm,
And when that sort of things were discovered, they were like, as I don't as the scripture would say, like they went to perdition, so to say.
mhm.
And yet now it seemed to like disappear, however, or dead, however, is live again.
Yeah, but
So
yeah, but
what do you think? What do
she's
you
not a
think that? What do you think that it? Well, because live again means like it is born in form of a nation, like Vatican. So what do you think that is then, in your opinion?
well. You see, if you study the history, then here's what we see. Under Constantine, the Roman Empire was crumbling. It was falling apart. It was losing power across the world
Right.
and
They got a
becoming weak. So
religion, right?
now, the one thing that they were spreading their forces thin and fighting against the Christian religion. And so, what Constantine did, he more or less said, "Well, if I can't beat them, I'm going to incorporate them into the Roman Empire." And
Right.
so he used his power to declare peace with the church and to get them to incorporate with the Roman Empire.
Right. So they accepted Christianity,
Yeah, so they accepted
so to say.
Christianity,
Yeah.
but then he also, at the same time, began to paganize Christianity,
Hmm.
and it went on through Justinian. Um, Constantine and Justinian called several councils together where they decided which books were going to be appropriate, and we call that the canon. And they also decided what doctrines were going to be appropriate. So, in the process of all this, they were also incorporating other things into the Christian religion. Uh, and so, they kind of paganized it at the same time. But then they used this as a control of the people to solidify Constantine, the power of the Roman Empire over the people. They were the controlling power, though. It wasn't really Rome. It wasn't, well, it was Rome, but under the Roman Empire. They were they were controlling the church. And then down through time, now there were certainly power struggles. You had power struggles left and right. Uh, and
I gotta disagree with that a little bit because there are some times that indeed the empire controlled, so to say, the church, but there have been more time where church actually controlled the power.
well, you see, that's why the Roman Empire spread out into all these various nations, because the Catholic Church can't control everybody. While they were controlling one nation or two nations, then you had all these other nations that they couldn't control. Like, for instance, when they were controlling Spain, they couldn't control England or France or these other nations. And
However, they always challenged, not with king. They always challenged not emperor, not through emperor or his power, but through religion.
well, see, there were times that the Pope was arrested
Oh
by
yeah, of
heads
course.
by heads of state, and the most that the Pope could do was, "Oh, you're excommunicated." That was the worst he could do. So he wasn't anything they really feared. And as we go down through time, we see that the Roman Catholic Church has become irrelevant today. We live in a very secular world, and even the World Council of Church in general, even the Protestant Church, is becoming irrelevant. Um, so, and what this boils down to, though, what sells me on this is that when we're reading about this, what we see is, like, for instance, okay, here is wisdom. This is Revelation chapter 17. The seven heads are seven mountains. Now, when you go to Jeremiah chapter 51, he calls Babylon and the virgin daughter of Babylon mountains, the destroying mountain. And she is going to, now these are nations. These aren't,
Some people say it's like a particular location. Even like some people would say that would be Rome, where it sits on seven mountains. Some people would say that is Washington D.C. even that sits on seven mountains.
well,
But what the point
but,
I'm trying to make?
but here's what I would say, though. I would say it doesn't matter what these people say, it matters what God says. And God interprets it right here. He says, there are seven kings, okay? The seven heads are seven mountains. Now, what is a mountain? A mountain is a kingdom, according to Jeremiah. Now, there are seven kings. Now, what do kings rule? Kings rule kingdoms. There are seven kings. Five are fallen, one is, and the other is not yet come. So it's being very specific. And
Right.
it doesn't matter where you go, whether it's Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 7, Daniel chapter 8, Revelation 13, Revelation 17. every single one of these chapters call them kingdoms and kings. So, and then
Yeah,
right here,
I think we both agree on that one, right? Like how different kingdom or power reason during the different time of period, right? Like for
yeah,
example, Greek Rome and whatever is going on to these days. So we do agree on that, but
hmm
there is more than one interpretation, so to say, and that's one of the things that people would be saying
right,
about what Seven Hills it would be and so on.
yeah. Well,
But whatever it is that's been passed, yeah, yeah, I do agree. That's fine. However, like for example, what the point that I'm trying to make is that there had been many powerful popes, so to say, and especially during the medieval time,
uh,
especially when they were like, um, um, you know, doing a lot of persecution towards saints, even.
yeah,
So yeah, we when you think about that, it's actually kind of more than just power, but also this Catholic, Roman Catholic especially,
hmm
carried lots of power, even that nowadays, even till this day. Like for example, the Pope will be visiting every country, and, and it's such a big deal. Even
hmm
it's not like it is residing over a certain country, but it carries that power. It carries uh, uh, that authority, so to say. You know.
Well, here's why I have to. You see, I was. Let me share a little story with you. When I was 22 years old, I was made an assistant pastor, and I didn't think that I was worthy of the position at all. Uh, but I accepted it, and I was honored that this dear brother would want me in that position in this church. So we had Bible studies every day, he and I, and we were great friends, and we're still great friends. But we did have a falling out, and I'll tell you why. Uh, for his he was a preacher. His dad was a preacher. His dad's dad was a preacher. And all of them, every single one of them, taught that um, the Vatican was the beast. The Catholic Church was the beast. And
I would agree with that.
well,
It's not like the beast from like Mesopotamia. It's not like the beast from like Persia or the Greek or Roman Empire, but it's the beast as in a sense of having authority and power and having separate nation as in Vatican.
they were talking about the end time beast, and when I was in a time period where I was studying for myself too, and I was in a time period where I was actually dropping a lot of the things I had been taught, so that I could embrace the Word of God. Like, for instance, I was a pre-tribber when it come to the rapture, and it was during this time period that I had to change that viewpoint. I'm no longer a pre-tribber. I became a what what I would call a very near the end of the trib rapturist. Um, and I had to do that because, in my opinion, I had to conform everything that I believed to the Word of God. And so I began using a system of what I call the law of 2 to 3 witnesses. And what I began to do is, if I could not find 2 or 3 witnesses through the scripture for everything that I believed, like for instance, pre trib rapture, I couldn't find a single witness in the scripture that stated clearly, uh, plainly, to where it took no reading into it or anything. It was just dogmatic. Uh, we're going to be raptured before the trib. Then I have to drop that. What I did find was where Jesus said, immediately after the tribulation of those days, we're going to be gathered. And the Second Thessalonians chapter 2, We have to see the fall of the church and the abomination of desolation before that day. And 1 Corinthians 15, at the last trump. Then when you read the trumpet of God, the last trumpet mentioned in Revelation, you see that's the time when the Lord's returning. Daniel chapter 12, 1 and 2. Anyway, when I began studying the beast, we had a falling out because I couldn't find anything in here that related to the church being the beast, a Catholic church or any other.
I wouldn't call Catholic as the church. It's actually it's quite anti-church.
Well,
Uh,
they would disagree. I have many Catholic brothers and sisters that I believe are saved.
oh, I'm sure there
Yeah.
are. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying that all of them are not saved. I'm sure
Right.
there are some of them who are saved.
Mm-hmm.
However, it gives him so many things that they are in fact I mean I'm talking about the Vatican. I'm talking about the Roman Catholic Church is actually behind a lot of authorities, a lot of power, even nowadays. They just morph, or they are just changed into different power. However, they are actually behind them.
Well, I believe that there are powers behind the Catholic Church telling them what to do. I think
Well,
it's the
well,
other way around.
well,
But you see,
well,
here's
then
here's
we can
here's
we
the
can eventually go up to Satan, the principalities and power,
well,
but you know, the
well.
Catholic did birth to a lot of even during that persecution time, even during like
Mm-hmm.
especially medieval time.
But
It was very dark, obviously, and had a lot of power over many European countries,
mm-hmm.
nations, especially the Rome, obviously, Roman Empire, and throughout, and to like different nations, and now eventually the states. Uh, but you know, no, I mean, I cannot dismiss the fact that the Vatican and a Roman Catholic have so many things behind
Well,
many atrocities.
what I'm getting to though, the reason that we had a falling out, the reason that he and I had a falling out, and this is a brother I dearly love, and we've reconciled since then. So I'm not speaking evil of my brother, but they believed for so long that the Roman Catholic Church was the beast, and then here I came saying, "Well, that's not what I see in these scriptures, and I would like to share what I see with the church." And they did not want me to do that. I did it anyway, and they asked me to leave. So I left. But you see, here's what I'm saying. I think that the interpretation that the Roman Catholic Church is the beast in the end
But
time is
Roman
just,
Catholic, I would say, it represents the false prophet.
well,
There are three different kinds,
well.
right?
Here's why I would disagree with that though, because it nowhere says that this is the a church or a leadership of a church. But let me read to you right here. This is Revelation chapter 17, and I'm going to okay. I'm going to pick up from verse 10 and read through 12. Well, 9 through 12. Okay, and this is what I'm talking about. Letting God interpret His prophecies. You see, we have to really reach to try to turn this into the Catholic Church. But if we just let God tell us what it means, then we don't even get a picture of the Catholic Church. Because what he says here is the seven heads are seven mountains. Mountains in Jeremiah 51 are describing
Yeah,
kingdoms.
we already established that, right?
Yeah. And then he goes on to say,
But do you
uh,
agree? Do you agree? Before you read it, do you agree that Vatican is actually a nation?
no, Uh,
Well,
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 I know what you're
well,
going to say.
hold on. Here's the thing, Eric.
They have a seat at the United Nations, but
It is,
listen to what I'm saying
it
though.
is, hold on. It is actually, Vatican is the world's smallest and fully independent nation, a country state.
Let me read to you what this says. Okay, there is no king. The Pope is not a king. Okay,
See, that's the thing, all right? But
hold
for
on,
them,
hold
for
on.
them, it's the king.
Let me read this to see what it is. You see, this is what the Roman Catholic Church, or not the Roman Catholic Church, this is what the Roman Empire morphs into. It morphs into 10 nations. Okay. Um, and it goes on to say, the beast that thou sawest is not. He is the eighth and is of the seven and goes into perdition. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings which have received no kingdom as yet, but receiveth power as kings 1 hour with the beast. Now, who is the beast that they're talking about? There's actually two beasts. And hello, be careful for nothing. It's good to see you, brother. There are actually
Hello, Rich. How are you today? You alright?
doing good. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. I've just been in a couple of hours Bible reading, and then just before I closed off, I just dozed off for a little bit, and I've just woken up.
Well, thanks for joining in. We're glad to have you. And thank you very much.
Yeah.
So, what he's saying here in verse 12, though, is extremely interesting because he keeps repeating this over and over. He says, the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings. There's no mention of a religious power here at all.
It doesn't mention about the kingdom. In fact, it says that it has not has not received kingdom yet.
That's right. And they hadn't.
Okay?
Because these, you see, this goes from, you got to remember the,
So
I agree with you on this.
Vatican was informed at this time.
Right. But the Vatican's been formed for over 1600 years. And this says that these 10
I don't think
horns,
so.
these 10 horns are 7 kings that are going to exist during the time that Jesus returns. That's when they take their kingdom. That's when they come to their power as kings. Right about the time that the Antichrist rises and then the false prophet. That's when these 10 horns rise. The 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings for 1 hour with the beast. So they're not even going to have their power until the beast rises. And then after the beast rises, they're going to take hold of their power and they are going to align themselves with the beast. But what we have to remember is that all of the beasts, it doesn't matter what we're talking about, whether we're talking about Babylon, Media Persia, Alexander the Great, Rome, or the 10 toes that Rome morphs into. Every single one of these are political powers. Now, there were religious powers that existed all through this time, but none of them were part of the beast.
Well, you gotta understand, Eric. You said like Vatican's uh, uh, it became a nation or as a country like 1600 years ago, but that happened only recently, like around 1930 or 1929, it became country.
Yeah,
Okay,
but still,
so
these,
before that, they were in power and actually having a lot of influence over many countries in Europe, and they were like backbone of anything that is religious and political.
but
Okay, so Go
but
ahead, man.
they don't have they just don't have power over the world. They don't have the
They
power.
do.
They don't
They,
have the power to influence the mark of the beast. They don't have the power
how
to.
how do you know? How do you know that, Eric?
How do I know that?
Yes.
Because we don't see Rome doing any of this. We see America and other nations pushing toward this. Uh, so, uh,
See, that's the thing. That's where we differ a little bit. I believe that there have been many power. However, the Vatican is actually one of the power that have been quite influential towards many countries, including the United States.
well, let me ask you something. Where can you point me to a scripture anywhere that says the Vatican is the beast?
Obviously, it's not going to say that America is the beast either. So that is actually kind of in a moot point in a way. Just because like you don't, it doesn't describe your toilet doesn't mean that toilet doesn't
No,
exist, right? So,
I don't believe America is the beast.
well, I mean, whether you think that is the mystery Babylon or not, it
Mhm.
doesn't say the United States is the mystery Babylon, for example. That's my
Well, I
point.
mean, show me any
It's not,
scripture that says that any part of the beast is religious.
so, like for example, like Revelation 17:8, right? Or what is that the verse that has was but now is and things? Which verse is that?
Okay. Uh, 7. Okay, you must be talking about 10, but
I know
8,
it's
8 through
17.
10, 8 through 10 says the beast that thou sawest was and is not. So if you're wanted to
So,
say,
oh yeah, okay. So that yeah, I was right. Yeah, Revelation 17:8. So that I would think that that is Roman Catholic when the
okay,
prime time was from
okay,
ever since the beginning all the way to medieval time.
okay,
And
well, hold on.
mhm, go ahead.
At the time that this was written, um, the Catholic Church was never even thought of.
I know.
Because Constantine initiated the Catholic Church about what 250 years after this was written. So
I,
what
so
he says is, though, the beast that thou sawest was. The Catholic Church was not was at that point.
I know, but we agreed upon the Roman Empire, like the powers like Greek Roman empires, those beasts was right. Those like for example, Greek was. However, throughout the history, the going over the medieval time, the Catholic Church, now Vatican Catholic Church, has been, is not, and it shall ascend out bottomless pit and go into
Well,
perdition, meaning they were they were like in a way found out.
this
However,
this kind of shows that that can't possibly be the interpretation, though, because it says what it says is now this was written somewhere between like probably 70 and 90 A.D. And it says the beast that thou sawest was okay. So it did exist before this was written, and the
so
Catholic Church didn't.
I
So
understand. I understand that, Eric. But the thing is, when it's talk about the beast, it's talking about the system and how that system has been all morphed into something different, and
and
now it's the same beast. It's
and
actually the
and
same beast all the way.
right. And what was this beast? It was political as far back as you can go. It was not religious. It was political.
Oh boy, it's not just political,
Of
but
course it was.
also yeah, not just political, but also in forms of religion and more than political means,
Well,
religion has been used to actually control people
well, we
and nation.
we can't say that. For
I mean,
instance,
what do you think that, like, for example, Pope Innocent, he was the most powerful pope during the medieval time. He was powerful, more powerful than any emperor. There
uh,
had been more popes like that throughout the history. So I understand that it has nothing to do with politics, but what I'm saying is that religion actually carried even more power sometimes
God
beyond
bless you.
just political.
God bless you, Norma Jean. We'll see you later. And thank you so much for dropping in. But yeah, the thing, what I'm saying though, uh, Sam, is that Babylon was a political power. It wasn't a religious power. And then the Media Persians was a political power. They weren't a religious power. Now, they allowed freedom of religion. And then when you come down through time, Alexander the Great was a political power. He wasn't a religious power. His mom claimed that he was a god, but they didn't, they
They
allowed people to.
they are they're separate things. However, they have to work together to control people.
Yeah, all I'm saying is none of these things were religious powers. Every single one was a political power. And then when you go back, okay, now here's an interesting question for you, Sam. We have four
Well,
powers mentioned in the book of Daniel in chapter 2, 7, and 8. Okay, four powers. But then in the book of Revelation, we have seven. So why do we have this conflict here?
well, obviously, whatever the beast are like when it's being transferred or when it's being morphed into, it can actually have little horn even.
But
Now, here's a
that
question
no,
though.
no, no,
Here's a
no.
question.
You're
Like
misunderstanding the question.
for example,
You
when the
mi-
mark of the mark
hold
when the
on,
mark of the beast, hold on,
hold,
when the
hold
mark
on,
of the
hold on just a second, Sam. You're misunderstanding the question. Okay, here's what I'm asking. It doesn't have anything to do with the heads because it says five were fallen. Okay, so five is more than the four in the first place, but it says that all of these were fallen. Now, at the time this was written, what existed was the state of Rome. That's what you had. So it says five are fallen, one is, and one is yet to come. Now, the one that's yet to come, we know is the end time morphing of the Roman Empire into 10 toes or 10 horns. That's the one that's yet to come. The one that existed at the time that this was written was Rome. So it says five are fallen, though. So if you go back from Rome with Daniel's statue or Daniel's four beasts, then the three that you only have three that are fallen. You have Rome, which would have existed at the time, but then the three that were fallen would have been Alexander the Great, the Media Persians, and
Gotcha.
Babylon. Those were the three that were fallen. So we're missing two that are fallen. And I'm just asking, why do you think there's a discrepancy there?
Okay, so here is the thing. Okay, you might want to separate political things and religious things. However, what I'm saying is that they work hand in hand. Like, for example, like in Revelation 13, okay, where it talks about worshiping the image. No political power will, have people to worship the image. It has to work together jointly with something quite religious. Otherwise, it doesn't use the words like worship.
Well,
Okay,
worship can take many forms too.
like what?
Well, like if you just treasure something, you can worship it. Like people worship money, people worship homes, people worship lawns, people worship.
But that's not the same as like people. You could do that, but not everyone does that. I'm talking about everyone, young, old, rich,
Mhm,
and poor. All
mhm.
these guys are worshiping the
Yeah.
beast. So when you have terms like that, it the religious power and it plays quite a lot of part in it. It's not
Well,
just about political things.
what if everybody started saying that this political power was the savior of mankind? It saved mankind from total annihilation. That in their hearts they are worshiping that beast.
So when you can worship, I guess, politicians, but that usually comes from religious things,
Yeah,
rather than anything political.
I like Trump,
So,
but I know some people that I could say worship Trump.
no,
There's
I don't
people.
worship him.
There's there's people that worship Biden.
So,
People that worshipped Obama. And and
I do
realized that they could do
see
no wrong.
this. My whole point is that I wish you can actually recognize Vatican as a actual country. You said it's
I,
not a country.
well,
However, however,
it's not.
according to the world, it was recognized as a country in
Yeah,
1929.
it's got a seat at the United Nations. I agree with that, but it's
Well,
not. It is a religious power, whereas
whether religious or not, it's a
right
country. You
now.
said it's not a country, but it is a
Well,
country.
I'm saying it's not a country with a king. You see,
Well,
these are literal countries with literal
the
kings. They are literal
according
kingdoms.
to that country,
We,
the Pope is the king.
well, we
They
don't
call
call the
no, they call
Vatican.
it called the they
We
call
don't
the Pope, and the Pope represents that country, the
we don't
Vatican,
we don't
and
call that cat.
he goes to other countries. Are you Catholic, Eric?
No,
Do you have any ties with Catholic?
no.
So I don't know why you are so defensive towards them, but
I'm not
I'm just
defensive. I'm just saying it doesn't fit what the Bible tells us about this. Yeah, I
Eric,
think
Eric.
if I'm gonna share with you something real quick here, I think personally you're stuck on making the Vatican part of this,
no, I'm not stuck
and
anywhere. I'm just telling you as it is.
that is your own interpretation. That's not letting
Well,
the
then, what
scripture.
is your interpretation, Eric? What is your
I don't
interpretation?
have an. I am letting God interpret this. What
I
Okay.
I
have I have an answer. I have a biblical answer. What I think, Eric, what do you think personally that Mystery Babylon is? Who do you think it is? I will give you my
I think Mystery Babylon
biblical.
is. Yeah, I think it's the USA.
Okay, I'll give you some scripture. If you can give me a couple of minutes to talk through scripture, and then one of you two or two of you, both of you can maybe question that. But I'm just going to say this:
Okay,
Jeremiah chapter 2, and I'm going to read Matthew, if that's okay. Just a few scriptures.
sure.
So Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 30. Jeremiah 2:30 says, "In vain have I smitten your children; they have received no correction. Your own sword hath devoured your prophets." Notice that word prophets, like
Mm-hmm.
a destroying lion. So I'm going to go like a destroying lion. So I'm going to go to Matthew now. Matthew chapter 23. And Jesus is talking to the prophets here. He's really giving them an ear bashing here. And he says to them, "Woe unto you," verse 29 onwards, he says, "Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because you build the tombs of the prophets and garnish the sepulchres of the righteous." Then he says this in verse 30, "And say, if we had been in the days of our fathers, we would not have been partakers with them in the blood of the prophets." We just read in Jeremiah 2, verse 30, where they punished the prophets. Verse 31, very important here. Jesus says, "Wherefore ye be witnesses unto yourselves that ye are the children of them which killed the prophets." So the Pharisees here, Jesus is referring to the Pharisees of them being the children of them back in the Old Testament that killed the prophets.
Mm-hmm.
And then he continues. I'm going to go to verse 37, which he says here, "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou that killest the prophets," again, the prophets, and stonest them, which I sent unto thee. How often I have gathered thy children together, even as a hen gathereth her chickens under her wings, and ye would not. And in Revelation chapter 18, a very good chapter to read. I won't read all of it. I'll just read verse 24. "And in her," who? That was the Mystery Babylon. "And in
Mm-hmm.
her was found the blood of the prophets and of the saints, and of
Mm-hmm.
all that all that was slain upon the earth." Now, Jesus makes it clear that Jerusalem was the one that killed the prophets and stoned them. Not once did the Vatican do that to the prophets, because they didn't kill no prophets. Yeah, sure, they killed the martyrs, but they didn't kill the prophets, and neither did USA kill the prophets. So Jesus makes that clear, and this is why there's a new heavenly Jerusalem about to come down. And the new heavenly Jerusalem, nothing that defileth or sin can enter into it, and that's God's pure holy city. That will be his new Jerusalem. So that's why there's a new Jerusalem coming down. I believe that Jesus gives us a clear warning who Mystery Babylon is in Matthew 23:37. What do you think of that?
I understand that opinion. I've actually heard that opinion before. But there's a lot of reasons I would disagree with that. We are going to we are going to do a study on Mystery Babylon in a few days here. If you'd like to be a part of that, I would enjoy having you on, and
Absolutely,
we can go through that.
And but, also, like, if I were to add about the blood of prophets, when Christ was talking about that, those prophets were not only killed in Jerusalem. Many prophets were slain throughout the history, not just in Jerusalem, but also even during, especially medieval time, during the Roman Catholic, and especially the saints, they were all slain. So Christ wasn't talking about that particular place.
Yeah, but they weren't
because
prophets,
obviously the prophets. No, there are. I mean, just because they were. For example, someone we didn't know maybe a prophet doesn't. But what I'm saying is that not all prophets were slain in Jerusalem. So when Christ was talking about Jerusalem, he was referring to those Jewish people.
That's right, the ones that killed the prophets.
Not particularly Jerusalem per se, that particular place.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he was talking to the children of those fathers that killed the prophets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we do see that at the end time, though, we have something else going on there, where the Antichrist himself makes war with the saints. In one place it says that he prevails against them in the book of Daniel, and then in wears them out, and in Revelation it tells the same thing, overcomes them. So we know that is coming afresh, a war against the saints. Now I would say that
Revelation 13, Revelation 13:7. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And Revelation 17 as well. These they're going to make war against the saints and overcome them. So the interesting thing about this to me, though, is that in all of these places, whether it's talking about when you go back in time and you look at all of the heads of this beast, from Nimrod up through Egypt, up through Babylon, up through Media Persia, Alexander the Great, Rome. Now, there were always religious elements to all of these places, every single one. But yet, the religious elements were used just to try to unify people. The interesting thing was that it was the state that was the ruling power behind all of this, the political power, and in particular, the man, the beast, like Nimrod, was the mighty hunter in God's face. And then you had the pharaohs, the pharaoh that wouldn't let God's people go, and he was in God's face. These weren't religious powers per se, but the one thing that they all have in common is that they all used religious power as one type of control over the people. So that's what I'm saying, Sam. I'm not saying that the Vatican and the Catholic Church are not used to try to, as one arm, one extension of control over the people. But I'm saying that's all they are. but it's the powers behind these political powers and behind the church that is controlling the world. And this beast is an entity that came down through time from the time of Nimrod. He has come down through time, and he's a timeless entity, and he keeps morphing, coming up and existing through all of these various heads. And by the time we reach the end time, nothing has changed. The only thing is we notice that the fourth beast, which is the legs of iron, is different from the rest. And how is it different from the rest? Only in that it's lasted for over 2,000 years, the Roman Empire, and it eventually morphs into 10 political kingdoms. And they're always called kingdoms and kings, and that they do, in the end, align themselves with the Antichrist, who then it is replaced by the eighth. This is where it says that the Antichrist gives way to the false prophet, who is the eighth, but of the seventh. So he's still of that seventh beast, that seventh head with the 10 horns. He is still a part of that power, but he is the eighth person. So that's all I'm saying. All through time, we have political powers, nations that make up this beast, and they all foreshadow the last one, the 10 toes or the 10 horns. And all of the kings before them, from Nimrod through Pharaoh, through Belshazzar, through Cyrus and Darius and Alexander and Titus and etc., these were all foreshadowings of the Antichrist. So it's just a beast that has come down through time, and it's always had a religious element to it, but the religious element was always used to help consolidate its power. The religious element was not its power. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I'm not going to repeat. I'm not going to repeat myself, but you know what I mean. Hey, what's up, bro? Bill, you gonna come in or what?
Come on in, Bill, if you like, brother.
Oh, hi, Bill. Oh,
and,
yeah, Bill's here, yeah.
And we will go into. I'm not quite sure when I'm going to be able to do it. It'll be in the next few days, though. We'll do something on Mystery Babylon. And you can come in and we can talk about it a bunch. I like...
yeah, the description of Mystery Babylon is so close to the United States. So
it is.
I mean, it's just I cannot actually like phantom anything else. But
yeah,
I may be wrong.
I
Give
feel
me 5 minutes, okay?
I feel the same way. I don't see how it can be any other political power.
I don't see that. I don't see that personally. I think we all see things different when it comes to this sort of thing, and I think it's something just to meditate and pray over. I can't see it's America at all, really, just by the context of what's being written there, to be honest. But hey, just a view.
Yeah,
just a view.
Well, here's John. He agrees with this. Mystery Babylon is USA. And I respect your view, brother. I do, and I understand the view, but I think that view is just kind of resting on one point. But when you take in every point, then it has to. There's several things in that description that I think disqualify her. Something I find really interesting, the words that are used to describe Mystery Babylon. We see that she's a whore. And
what color? Sorry to interrupt, Eric. What color? What colors represent USA?
Red, white, and blue.
According to the scriptures of Revelation 17, it's purple and scarlet.
Yeah, and when you look at the words purple and scarlet in the Greek, they're the same words that would be used to describe red
I,
and
I,
blue.
I don't. I'm not over keen on the Greek. I just see that what color is written is a color is written, and if I saw a color on a chart, if I went shopping for some paint and I wanted to paint up, I don't know, if my nana or something like that wanted a room painted and I see scarlet, I'm going to think it's scarlet. I'm not going to be colorblind and think it's something else. It says what it says. I mean, even in the Old Testament, the Exodus I've just read, and how certain things were used, like colors of purple and scarlet, and the colors, there are, what they mean. They're there. You know.
Yeah, let me screen share something with you here. You'll find this interesting, I think.
If
Um,
if basically, if the passages wanted to say blue, it would have said blue. If it would have
well,
said white, it would have said white. There's plenty of places in the Bible where colors mean what they mean. You can't distort that text.
yeah, that's what I want to show you here. This is interesting. The word, uh, the Greek word that's used here for the word that's interpreted purple is porphyra, and it's symbolic of royal status. There were three familiar shades of purple in the ancient world: deep violet, deep scarlet, and deep blue. So that word, lit violet or a deep scarlet, and then the other word that was used for scarlet is a grain or berry of the ilex. These berries are the clusters of eggs of a female insect, and they are crimson. And when collected and pulverized, produce a red, which was used in dyeing. So both words can actually mean literally red and blue. Now, the interesting thing is, a whore isn't born a whore. A whore becomes a whore. She's born a poor innocent baby. And the same could be said for the United States. When we were settled, we had things like the Mayflower Compact and other Christian compacts.
Yeah,
So,
but USA isn't responsible for the death of the saints. It says here in verse 6, in verse 7, chapter 17, and I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the martyrs, blood of the martyrs. And once again, in my reference, this goes back to Revelation 18:24, and in her was found the blood of the prophets. USA didn't kill the prophets, and it can't be the USA. It's a double
Uh,
standard right there.
I
well,
think that there are two things, basically the women and the Babylon. Okay, some people say the women is actually those during that medieval time of Catholic, and then some people say also the Babylon is United States. So there are two different things. And Catholics, how they wear scarlet clothing and things like that, and the woman is writing. So they're
yeah,
not two. They're not the same things. They're
yeah,
two different things.
yeah. The interesting point about the killing of the saints is that we know that when Antichrist rises, he is going to initiate a new war against the saints. Now, we could say right now, uh, saints are being killed in Korea right now, China right now, Muslim nations right now. They're being persecuted, prosecuted, robbed, imprisoned, beaten, killed. But we know that they're not going to be Mystery Babylon.
Oh,
So, and, right.
I don't doubt that that the saints. I mean, even now, I mean, there's lots of persecution in Christianity going.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the saddest things. I mean, it's happening right now. But people, you're still missing the point. What's a prophet? What does a prophet do? A prophet prophesies. The
Right.
prophets prophesied of Christ's coming. The
Mm-hmm.
prophets prophesied of things to come. Here, you still can't take out the word prophet. Prophets aren't being killed today. It's included in the text. USA
Well,
didn't kill prophets.
the USA hasn't killed anybody yet, but the Antichrist hasn't risen yet. The Antichrist hasn't killed anybody yet.
No,
And,
but we're talking about we're still
when
looking
it's
in
talk
here.
about
These
when it's
verses
talk
go back
about
to what's happened in the
wh-
past.
okay, when it's talk about prophet also, just like in Matthew 7 when Christ was talking about when he said false prophet, that means teachers also.
Mhm.
And so like just because you are not going to like foresee or tell prophesy doesn't mean that he or she is not a prophet. Simply, he could be a teacher, someone who would be even against what was going on during the Roman Catholic and how he was martyred, and he could be considered as a teacher, a prophet. So, it's not like, prophets got killed long time ago or during the time of, or before the time of Jesus, but even after, there have been many teachers who've been martyred.
Yeah. Well, you see, there's something else too. We see that Antichrist is going to start a war on the saints. Now, then it says that you would have to say the seventh kingdom, uh, the 10 toes or the 10 horns that comes down through us and morphs from Rome into what its end time status is. What we have to say is that during that time, whenever Antichrist begins his war on the saints, he's not literally responsible for the blood of the prophets that the Jews spilled in times past. Herod, for instance, was a lot of things. He was an Edomite, he was a Jew, he was a Roman, and he was responsible for the death of what Jesus said was the greatest prophet, John the Baptist. But at the same time, Christ is taking out the death of all of the saints and all of the prophets on the Antichrist, and everyone from, I guess you could say, every martyr from Cain or from Abel to the end
Hmm.
time is going to be taken out on the Antichrist himself. But the reason I don't think that Jerusalem is going to be Mystery Babylon is because there's just so much it doesn't fit. Jerusalem doesn't rule the world. Jerusalem isn't the mother of harlots and all the abominations of the earth. For instance, I can use abortion as an example. Jerusalem is not making countries conform to abortion or transgenderism or homosexuality or gendered bathrooms, but the United States is.
What do you think about some people saying that it may not be just a country, but a city like New York? Because after all, like in Revelation 18:17, it says that for in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught, and every shipmaster and all the company in ships and sailors and as many as trade by sea stood afar off. And of course, the prior verses talks about riches and how what a great city is and such. What do you think about like that particular place being a city?
That's really interesting. I believe that we often refer to nations by their main cities. Like when people refer to the United States, they can refer to it as D.C. or New York or even Los Angeles. Um, you know, New York and I would say D.C. and New York are the top two cities that are referred to many times when people are referring to the United States.
Oh,
And I,
USA
But
is the back.
USA is a country,
mm-hmm.
There you go.
and it's talking about one city here in the scriptures. As the USA's not one city. As USA's a country. USA's like the UK, a country. But here we're talking about one city, the great city.
They do refer New York as the Great City, so
Yeah,
we'll see.
USA doesn't match half of what you guys are saying. It just doesn't make sense.
well, that great city which rules over the earth. I don't think we could say
The
Israel.
stock market, like for example, like stock market, even. But anyway, we can talk about this later on. And we gotta welcome Bro Bill,
Yeah,
who doesn't want to
Hey,
talk about
Bill.
yeah.
eschatology.
How you doing, brother Bill?
I'm all right. I'm all right. And as you can see, the apocalypse is going on behind me.
Hey, yeah, it is, man.
Oh,
Quite an
dear.
apocalypse.
Coming out of your head.
I know. Maybe I am the Antichrist.
Oh man, come
Who
on.
knows? Who knows?
I'm
Well,
sure there's some people that would say you are.
yeah. Well, yeah. There is actually quite a few people. Yeah. Sadly, but
Yeah,
true.
The wrath
yeah.
of Bill.
Yeah. The wrath of Bill should be upon them.
Here, I waited for you so I could play this. Okay, so here you go. A lot of fish stuff for you.
Yeah, look at that.
But anyway, how are you doing, bro?
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Not too
I,
bad. I've
I,
been.
I I checked it out. Did you see my comment on your on your parody video?
Not yet. No. No. I've been
Oh,
trying to get in here,
oh, right.
setting up
Okay.
the. But I will check it out soon. Yeah. Yeah. I've been in the garden mostly this morning.
Oh yeah, what'd you tend today?
I put in some parsnip seeds, 4 rows of parsnip seeds. Put out me hardy lettuce and planted out some semi-grown broad beans today. So,
Hmm.
so I just like just suddenly watching them fish getting whacked on the head was fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it sucked to be a fish, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Well, you know, they're gonna be part of someone's body, so more honor to them. It's honor for them, I guess. You know, because some fish they just die or become a part of like octopus or whale, but they get to be a part of a human. So
You're making me want to turn vegan, dude.
I don't know. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's I don't know. Maybe do you guys eat sashimi? Sashimi
No,
is like raw fish.
no. I want
No.
mine
How
cooked.
about
Thank
like
you.
sushi? Do you eat sushi?
No, I want mine cooked. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I could eat it raw if I wanted to. I just have no desire. I like mine well cooked.
But like fresh ones, you can even like have it raw like
Mm.
that.
Yeah, I've ate lots of bass and catfish and crappie and bluegill, and every one of them was cooked. I can assure you.
Man, when I went to
Salmon's
Japan,
lovely. Salmon's lovely. Salmon's nice. Me and my family, we have fish, and what we
like
do,
raw,
we
like
do spaghetti, and then we put fish on the spaghetti and put sesame sauce over it. It's just beautiful.
Oh, that
oh,
sounds
cooked
interesting.
salmon. I see. Uh,
Yeah.
If it is fresh, I'd rather have like raw. But like one time I went to Japan and when I got together with my good friend there, and like I could never forget it. You know, he treated me to a sashimi place, and this fish, the eye was still blinking.
Yeah.
With all the flesh part.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah,
Hey, come
that's like
on,
that's
come
like
on.
eating the monkey brain while the
Yeah.
monkey is still alive. People do that.
Oh, that's a little. No, that's mammal. No, we don't want that.
Yeah. So, brother Bill, what do you think of the possibility of USA being Mystery Babylon? Do you think that's far fetched? Just curious.
No, I don't think it's far fetched because obviously, as we know, Revelation is such a mysterious book. Full of obviously, hyperbole and mystery, basically. So, in regard
Well,
to
hmm.
the evils of the world, in a Christian perspective, There's no other country that has slaughtered and massacred as many babies and innocent as America. There's none other country been as mighty as America. And, you know, it is possibility, you know. But even if you tie in Rome, because I only found this out a few years ago, because I always thought America was like Protestant. But the biggest denomination in America is Roman Catholic.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I thought it's Protestant, but no, it's not.
Yeah.
So, same thing in Korea. You know, they call Christian, but like biggest denomination is Catholic. Anywhere in the country almost. So, yeah, you know, it's not a joke. The Vatican is doing its thing.
Because it could be intertwining, you see. You just this is overlappings, intertwinings.
That's why I said that.
Not my strong subject, to be honest. You know, interesting. I like listening more than contributing. But, you know, if I had to, you know, hazard a guess, I would say that there's inklings of the harlotry from Rome and America with its abominations.
Right. So, that's why I said that women is Catholic and Babylon is, like, you know, we talked about. But interesting stuff. Yeah, interesting stuff indeed.
Yeah.
It does said it's gonna be gone in an hour. So
yeah. Now that's another interesting thing right there. As a matter of fact, Jeremiah 50 and 51, a lot of the things that you read in Revelation 17 and 18 are directly quoted from Jeremiah 50 and 51, which I think is fascinating. But one of the things Isaiah calls her the virgin daughter of Babylon, and Jeremiah 50 and 51 is interchangeably talking back and forth about Babylon, the nation that existed back then, and the daughter of Babylon that's going to exist in the end. And he says that, he says that he is going to fill, God says that he's going to fill her with men like caterpillars, and near the end, they're going to lift up a shout against her. And you know what that immediately brought to mind to me was we've been bringing in literally hundreds of thousands and over a period of years, millions of Muslim quote-unquote refugees from war-torn nations and distributing them across the nation from coast to coast in various cities all across the United States. And our own intelligence agencies admit that at least 25% of them are radicalized and want to destroy the nation. And then on top of that, we have an open southern border, basically, as good as open. And we have people coming in daily by the hordes. And we don't know that all of them are from Central and South America. And a lot of them are gang members. And a lot of them hate this nation. A lot of them bring nothing but trouble. So when you think about what a caterpillar does, I lived on a property one time that had a couple of trees that were infested with caterpillars. And brother, they eat it till it's dead. It's just pathetic to see that. And I think that's what God is saying. He's literally saying he's going to fill her with people like caterpillars, and they're going to lift up a shout against her. And then in Revelation 17 and 18, we see that she's also destroyed in an hour from without by the very allies that she's aligned with. And then we see that that's when Antichrist, for some reason, in Daniel chapter 11, verses 44 and 45, sets his kingdom up, the seat of his power in Israel. And that's when he commits the abomination of desolation. That's when Armageddon starts. If you turn the page to chapter 12, that's when Armageddon starts. I just think that's all very, very interesting. So whoever Mystery Babylon is, she's going to be destroyed from within, and then she's going to be destroyed from without in an hour, burnt with fire.
Are we not almost seeing like the beginnings of disunity and self-destruction in America already?
Yeah, that's a fact.
Yeah.
Oh, our brother had to leave. Brother, be careful for nothing, 7. Thank you for joining in with us, my friend. When we do this little study on Mystery Babylon, we will definitely bring you up and we'll talk about all the different aspects of Mystery Babylon. I think that's going to be a great little study. And we don't always have to agree on everything. Whether I can convince my brother Thick Shades that all of these are nations. Now, Sam, I do agree with you that religion has always been played a part in controlling people with all of these powers that have risen through history, from Nimrod through Egypt, through Babylon and Media Persia and Rome. And I'm sure it will be.
I mean, even now, Jesuits, the Illuminati, Masons, they're just different form. But yeah, these guys are with a lot of money, a lot of power, principalities and power.
Yeah, I just believe that all of these political powers employ many things to control the world, the entire world. Like the United States, for instance, if we were part of this end time power, then I could see how we kind of keep our pulse on religion. We kind of control religion. We control the various things that are going on around the world, like this war with Ukraine right now. I have to say, I really believe we're responsible for this war. And I think that's very sad that we have to constantly break our agreements in order to change situations around the world and upset other nations. I think that, Ukraine is simply being used right now. And the thing about the news, we read about all these things that are going on with the nation of Ukraine and the atrocities Putin is performing. The thing is, you don't know what to trust with the news. They manufacture so much crap that it just proves untrue over a period of time. Do you guys remember when we were trying to justify going to war against Iraq with George Bush Jr. taking it before the United Nations with Colin Powell? And they were stating that the Iraqi forces invaded a hospital where civilians were, and they started bayoneting babies. Do you guys remember that?
Oh yeah, I mean that sort of trickery has been throughout the history, including Vietnam. So it's all part of welfare, isn't it?
Yeah. And then, but you see, we were picking that war. There wasn't no good reason to go to war. We just, at least not from a civilian standpoint, but from the standpoint of the military-industrial complex and a group of politicians that make their money when we go to war because they're invested in the military-industrial complex. It sure makes sense for them. And then when we were justifying being there and trying to rally America to stay behind the war, we talked about that girl that got blown up in a convoy and she broke her leg, and she had this Iraqi battalion coming in on her, and she held them off with her own M16. And then when she ran out of bullets, she started using her knife and fighting them off. And 10 years later, she comes out and admitted that every bit of that was a lie. Well, that's what I'm saying. When we hear about all these atrocities that are being carried out by Putin, our news agencies are absolutely discredited. We have no way of knowing what the truth is.
That's the problem.
Yeah,
and that's exactly what they want, and I've been wanting that for a long time.
I agree with you, brother.
Literally all media is untrustable now.
And then the manipulation and control is getting, getting bigger and bigger and worse, obviously, including this jab thing.
At the point with me, the only thing I can trust is the good book.
Amen.
That's it. Because there's so many like it. The same in this country, the weapons of mass destruction that Tony Blair said, and we've got to invade them. We've got to, liberate the people. And you think that was all lies. There was no weapons of mass destruction. In actual fact, Christianity was mostly left alone until the war. Because, the problem is an American supposed Christian nation invaded Iraq. Then the Christians started getting persecuted in Iraq. But up until that point, the Christians were in Saddam Hussein's government and all sorts. But Christianity's almost been wiped out now of Iraq because of that.
Yeah.
The things, whatever happens, whatever war there is, Satan is the god of this world, and the target is always going to be Christians.
Yeah.
Whatever happens.
Yeah.
That's what I've seen.
Yeah. Revelation chapter 16 is a really interesting verse too. It's a really interesting chapter, I should say. Let me pull something up here. Reading along these lines here. Rev 16, KJV. When we talk about the brother John just in chat mentioned that God sends fanners to fan the flames, so to speak, and that these fanners are demons. That's such an interesting point. In the chapter 16 of Revelation, beginning with the 5th vial, we see the 5th vial is poured upon the kingdom of the beast, upon the seat of the beast, and his kingdom is full of darkness. And they blaspheme God. The 6th angel pours out his vial upon the great river Euphrates. So we see angels right there that are bringing about different things to change the political situation on earth. They're causing the Antichrist to move his seat of power to Israel by doing whatever they do to his kingdom. And then the 6th one, drying up the river Euphrates, that's an angelic act right there. And then he sees 3 unclean spirits. These are the demons that Brother John was just talking about. 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. And they are the spirits of devils working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the whole earth and the whole world to gather them together to the battle of the great day of God Almighty. And they pull them together into the place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon. So, yeah, that's a really interesting point. One that fascinates me.
So I just can't stop watching the chopping up of the squid there.
Oh, that's octopus, by the way. Not squiddy. Not squiddy.
Not squiddy. You can't have squiddy chopped up.
Well, do you think you can handle that, bro? Have you had anything like any, what you can call it, like sashimi or raw fish and stuff like that?
I've had raw fish. I've not had things that's still moving around like that.
That is one of the best things when you consume it, when it still move around. It's kind of, it can suck on the top of your mouth or tongue or whatever,
Yeah.
and a little bit of sesame oil.
Yeah, if something was going to eat me, please kill me first.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I think that's just an automatic response in a way. It's not really, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I just couldn't do that, brother. Not me. I would feel terrible. I would feel convicted. I really would.
That looks yummy. Pro Eric, come on.
No. You
You
know,
gotta start from somewhere.
I don't mind hunting. I don't mind fishing. I've butchered my own cattle, but everything I've eaten was killed graciously, quickly.
Mm-hmm. But that's a little different from mammals. So
Well, even fish.
yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so do you think that we are close to the time of the end?
I think so.
I do
Well,
too.
yeah, surely there's a lot of strange things going on. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, a lot.
I don't see how we can go much longer, personally.
Well, no, like I said, throughout history, we've never got to the point where a beast system can be implemented until now, with all the technology from implantables to everything else, transhumanism. You know, no time in history could we have ever got to the beast system, but now we can.
Amen.
And that's why I think, things are going to go south rapidly sooner than what we think.
Right. It'll only escalate, obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
Exponentially.
Yeah.
So.
Now, Brother Bill, did you see the articles about? Oh, I think you did. I think you mentioned yesterday you had seen the articles about the ATMs being drawn out of Australia.
Yeah.
And
see, when that goes, your freedom's gone. Money is your last freedom.
Yeah.
Because when that's gone, they know everything you buy, where you buy it, what time. They know they know everything about you. Because it's all it's all going to be on card or chip or whatever. But at the moment,
it's pretty much cashless in Korea.
Yeah, it's not at the moment here. We're kind of slowly going that way, but you're still 40% of the population here uses cash.
Mm-hmm.
But that's still scary when you consider about 10 years ago, 80% of the population used cash.
Yeah, I remember a couple decades ago, man, people really stood and fought against this.
Yeah.
But not so much anymore.
No.
Well, that generation has been gone. So
Mm-hmm.
They don't realise, the youngsters, because they're beguiled by all this technology and the ease of things. They think, okay, it's all nice and easy. You don't have to scramble for money. You don't have to do this or drop money. It's click it on the old machine and it's mine. But they don't realise by doing that they are being tracked, they're being traced, and their freedom's gone. Oops, Sam's getting a call in.
Yeah. Everybody okay? Things are moving so fast right now. It's just a matter of time. But Satan uses desensitization, and evil men desensitize us towards what they're wanting to do eventually. They take tiny little steps. They don't mind taking 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and then 2 steps forward again and 1 step back. As long as they make that eventual progress, then, people like us that stand for decades and say, look, this is leading us into that one world system, that one world economy. And now we've been screaming that for 3, 4, or 5 decades. And when the world hears it now, they just brush us off.
Oh, you know.
Bro, Eric, you're highlighting a spam.
Oh,
It's a spam.
oh, sorry about that. Thanks for telling me. Oh, gosh.
Yeah, you're kind of sneaky, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's what we're doing again. Yeah, it's all again like the boiling frog scenario as well. You know, just gradually, little by little, and before you know it, that's over.
Yep.
And that's where we are.
And, you know, we scream it for decades, and the people hear us scream it for decades. And, you know, it brings about the prophecy and fulfills it, where we're told that people are going to say, where is the promise of his return?
Yeah.
It's been 2,000 years, and time is still going on, and he hasn't returned.
Yeah.
So, you know.
And also, it doesn't help where, and I believe Satan's behind this as well, using false Christians over the years, you know, decrying the end is nigh. The end is going to be 28. Oh, no, it's going to be 2012, 16, and it goes on. And, you know, when we get to that point where God charges his children to let people know, right, literally, we are at the day, no one's going to believe us.
Yeah.
Because I've heard it so many times from these false prophets and date setters. They just won't believe us.
I don't know how many times I've seen date setters on YouTube saying, like, you know, back in 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, I think it happened every single year, brother.
Yeah.
And I kept jumping on there saying, why are you guys bringing such shame on the church? Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
You know, and then you get stupid answers, man. Like, oh, well, we're not hurting. Of course you're hurting something.
Yeah,
you know?
You really are. Yeah. And like I said, I think the majority of them know what they're doing and they're working under the spirit of Antichrist. Obviously, you get the odd stupid person who gets overexcited and whipped up and it would say something like that, but a lot of them are deliberate Antichrists.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yep. Amen, John. You know, there's going to be it's going to be hard to tell who the Antichrist is until we see certain things happen. That's another thing I see people all the time saying, oh, well, this guy's got to be Antichrist. Henry Kissinger was Antichrist. Ronald Reagan was Antichrist. So many people were Antichrist.
Prince Charles.
Yeah. Obama.
Yeah.
And I keep telling them, there's no way you can know who the Antichrist is until we see certain things happen. You know?
Yeah. Until he reveals himself.
Yeah. Like they'll say, well, he'll institute a war on the saints. Yeah, well, we don't see any of these guys doing that. They'll say he'll receive a deadly wound to the head. Yeah, we don't see any of those guys doing that. So, you know, when we see, and we know, you know, the war against the saints may not occur until he gets that deadly wound. You know what I'm saying? So, but when we see a deadly wound, when we see a war on the saints, and we see somebody taking his power and performing miracles and coming up with an image and instituting the mark, then we can say this is Antichrist.
Yeah.
But, you know, until then, I think we just need to watch and pray.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Scary times, but also exciting times.
Yeah.
We know our redemption draws nigh.
You know, my idea of predestination is that God chose, knowing every decision we would ever make, no matter what time or nation or family he put us into, he chose this particular time for each and every one of us. I think that was a special honor, but it's also the most dangerous, deceptive time that we ever could have been born into.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Yeah, can't disagree with that one. So I'm just looking at what Sam shot. It looks like a circumcision gone wrong.
It does. That looks really.
I was just getting some banana chip.
Oh, well.
Yeah, something to munch. Because this sashimi, all this sashimi stuff is making me hungry.
Making you hungry.
Yeah. Enjoy.
Yeah. Well, sorry, I also had to go to the bathroom. Did I miss anything?
Yeah,
the most important things. Well done, Sam.
Octopus?
Yeah.
You know what I had for breakfast today?
What'd you have?
I had a burrito wrap with a streak of peanut butter run down it, with diced up strawberries and blueberries wrapped up.
It sounds so beta. It
is awesome. Let me tell you.
Yeah,
that's real. Good. That's real food.
No, that's cooked. Those shellfish, they're cooked. So at least you can have that.
Yeah, you know what? That one. You know what I'm having for lunch?
Hamburger.
Well, burritos with hamburger and refried beans and spinach and cheese and sour cream if I got it. It won't be moving around in the wrap, though, I guarantee you.
No. It'd be pretty dead what you're eating.
Yeah. Well, Bill, do you have anything going on this afternoon?
No. I'm having just going to be browsing and watching stuff today, I think.
We'll get together in a couple of days and do something on Mystery Babylon. That ought to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Sam, are you doing anything this afternoon?
Well, I don't know what it means by this afternoon, but how many hours later? Because I'm in a different country. I might be sleeping or whatever. But
yeah. What time is it where you're at?
It's about 2:40 a.m.
Oh, okay. It's just a little bit after noon here. It's 12:38.
Oh, I might be sleeping.
5:58 here. 5:58 here.
Yeah. So Sam's going to be crashing soon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bill's going to be relaxing soon.
After this, I'll probably crash.
Yeah.
Well,
that's halibut.
Yeah.
I've caught some pretty huge halibut, man.
That's a big one. Yeah.
That's so yummy, especially also in soup. In spicy soup.
I love flounder. I've caught flounder big enough that you could clean it and put it into packages that would last you a day, feed a family for a day, and you can end up with 7 or 8, 10 different packages. So feed a family for that many days. That's a big flounder.
It is a big one.
Man, have you ever tried to get a flounder off the ocean floor?
No.
Oh, brother, that can be a job, man. They like to flatten out and bury themselves under the sand and flatten out.
Yeah.
The hideaway.
Well, I'm going to do it in a second. Well, I'm going to have to love and leave you. I've got to go start doing a bit of dinner and stuff.
Well, God bless you. And we'll just go ahead and call it a day. And thank you guys for joining me. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you for awesome study.
Yeah.
God bless.
God bless you all. Love you guys, man. We'll see you later.
God bless you. Yep.
And for everybody
No
else,
more fish over here.
yeah, and for everybody else, thank you so much for joining us. John, thank you. And all our new friends, thank you very much. We love you guys. God bless you. This is Eric, a.k.a. Wolfbitten. This was Hot Topics. And sometimes, our discussions get a little bit feisty, but that's good. It's iron sharpening iron, and we all leave loving one another as brothers and sisters in Christ. And that's the important thing, isn't it? So it's good to watch and pray. It's good to study and learn. It's good to let iron sharpen iron. It's even more important. We can know all things and not have agape, as the brother Bill pointed out yesterday, and we are nothing. So that's the end of it all. Let's love one another. Have a great day. Thank you so much for joining. Join us tomorrow. Join us the next day for our Bible studies. We will see you, and we love you. Goodbye.